My dear Earth friends. This is Hakann speaking. I am glad to connect with you again. Frankly, pretty much everyone on Earth is starving for love. To get your love needs met, ideally you would need self-love, and loving parents, and a loving partner and children, and a loving community. And because most of you can't mind read yet, those would each need to express love with an intensity and a regularity and a heart openness that would be considered bizarre on your world. If someone were to actually express that level of love to you, you might even feel unworthy or not good enough, even though you are fully worthy of all the love in the universe. Just rationally knowing that the people around you love you, isn't sufficient. Yes, it's good to rationally realize that people love you, but to be fully nourished you likely need people to actually express their love to you, regularly and deeply. It's easy to just love yourself, and certainly that is one very important component of it. However, most people currently also need love from other people to feel fully happy. And just denying that need isn't helpful. It's hard in practice to fully get enough love while being on Earth, but theoretically the solution is pretty straightforward. 1. Find good people to be around. If you can be part of a loving community, that's wonderful. 2. Express love to your loved ones, and most likely they will express it back to you. 3. Be gentle with yourself. Expecting yourself to be without flaws simply isn't realistic. In fact, you're doing amazing already if you're an at least partially awakened person on Earth right now, and if you're tuning into these messages, likely you are. So be gentle with yourself. It can also help at the end of every day to give yourself a compliment about one good thing you did that day, even if it's a small or a routine thing. So if you went to work, or meditated, or were kind to another person, great job, that was a good thing you did, and it's good to point that out to yourself. And if you think, but I didn't do enough today, who says that? Which law of physics prescribes that you objectively didn't do enough today? Perhaps you don't fully appreciate just how hard it is to be on Earth, and you don't have sufficient eyes for the things that you are doing well already. Those were my suggestions for today. Next up, let's observe that people often try to meet their needs in sneaky or manipulative or roundabout ways if they don't think they can get their needs met directly. So for the rest of this message, let's look at how society is warped by Earth people not being loved enough, and trying to get that need met indirectly. The left might say, everyone deserves a good life, and the right might retort that's not realistic, plus the left doesn't actually want a good life for right-wingers, so they don't actually want a good life for everyone. Conversely, the right might say, ideally, conditions should be such that everyone can build a good life for themselves in their own country. We don't have the resources here in the West to take care of everyone. And the left may not think that's good enough. While there are some differences between these left-wing and right-wing positions, the core sentiment is still the same: decent people should have a good life. And Earth is so abundant, there are so many raw resources on your world, that in theory it would be easy for everyone to have a decent life. After all, why couldn't you build enough houses for everyone? Do you lack physical space? No, you don't. You could house everyone on the entire world just in Texas alone. Do you lack building material for so many houses? Clearly not. So why doesn't everyone on Earth have a house? Almost always when a broad or complex question is asked, there are multiple factors. But for today, let's zoom in on one factor. Everyone is love-starved. People see the amount of available love as being limited, and from one perspective, it is, because the amount of love that a person ideally needs is so much larger than the average person gets. And a famous singer gets much more love than a random nobody. Even a moderately successful person gets more respect and love than a burger flipper at McDonald's. A left-wing person expressing left-wing views gets more love and appreciation, in left-wing circles, than a right-winger. Etc., etc. So you could see it as, everyone is standing in the queue for love, which I call the love me queue. And people feel there's not enough love for everyone, and so everyone tries to get ahead of everyone else in the love me queue, in order to get more love. One way in which people try to get ahead in the queue of other people is by virtue signaling, expressing left-wing opinions so that other left-wingers give them some degree of appreciation and recognition. And it's effective to be more left-wing than most, so that you stand out and people pay attention to you rather than to other left-wingers. Therefore the left tends to become ever more left-wing on social issues, to the extent that the Biden administration tried to replace the word mother with birthing person. Personally, I would call this love me signaling more than virtue signaling. Because what the virtue signaler often tries to accomplish is, well, to receive more love. Of course, the person promoting the left-wing position may also simply genuinely believe in it and genuinely want to help people and improve society, from their perspective. Things and people are complex, not everything that people do is 100% motivated by them wanting more love. But it is an important factor. In fact, saying that all left-wingers are nothing but virtue signalers, as opposed to saying that some of them are, can be a way to put yourself ahead of left-wingers in the love me queue, and is therefore not that different from virtue signaling. Saying that all people of, for example, a certain political side are bad, can be a way to try to move ahead of them in the love me queue, as well as gain recognition and love from the people on your political side who also dislike the other political side. Also, an often right-wing way in which people try to get ahead in the love me queue of other people is that they try to become richer or more famous or higher status than others. This is pretty straightforward. Richer, more famous and higher status people get more recognition and appreciation and love. Therefore people try to become richer and more famous and higher status, even to an extent that doesn't make sense. A billionaire already has far more money than he needs to live in comfort, yet he often spends his time trying to make even more money. Why? So he gets ahead of others in the love me queue. From one perspective this doesn't sound so bad, and absolutely sometimes rich people genuinely contribute a lot to society. But other times they bribe politicians to rewrite the laws in their favor, they establish quasi-monopolies and then jack up prices, they eliminate or buy up competition, they brainwash the population by buying media and broadcasting propaganda, they poison the environment, they sell cures that make people sicker over time, etc. Some rich people absolutely do make people's lives worse, just so they can earn more money and get further ahead in the love me queue. There's also a clear trend that worker productivity is increasing, yet people's wages in real terms are actually decreasing, and all the while rich people and big businesses are becoming ever richer. This trend has gone so far that the rich barely even spend the money productively anymore. Why build a new factory when most people are too broke to buy things? Harvard Business School asked their graduates which hypothetical situation they preferred upon graduation. You make $160,000 and the rest of the students in the cohort on average get $150,000. Or, you make $200,000 and the rest of the students in the cohort on average get $220,000. 87% chose the first option. So it's not about having enough for yourself. It's about earning more than others so that you're ahead of them in the love me queue. This is also why it's hard on your world to eliminate poverty. A whole lot of people are opposed to measures that would bring people who are currently behind them in the love me queue up to their own position in the love me queue. A person who makes $10 per hour doesn't want the minimum wage to be increased to $10, because then he's no longer ahead of minimum wage workers in the love me queue. It's not a bug in the system that minimum wage workers are struggling. That's a feature, because it means that other people can clearly see that those people are behind them in the love me queue, and thereby feel good about themselves. As the quote goes, "It is not enough for me to succeed, others must fail." Even people who like the idea of communism often think of communism as money is taken from the rich and given to me. They're probably not thinking in terms of I'll have to start sharing my home or apartment with a homeless person or immigrant. They're probably also not thinking in terms of I'll be forced to donate money to Africans, who after all are generally poorer than myself. A modern rich left-winger probably doesn't actually want true communism to be established, because then he would no longer be richer and therefore ahead of almost everyone in the love me queue. If he wants communism at all, then he wants a kind of communism where he's part of a vanguard that has more power or status or personal property than the average person. But it's probably more in the personal interest of a rich left-winger to not push communism, and instead to push social issues, or right-wingers' bad messages, that don't endanger his own wealth and therefore position in the love me queue. In fact, pushing social issues, or right-wingers' bad messages, may even enhance his position in the love me queue because doing so looks good to other left-wingers. For example, let's look at the concept of reparations when it's pushed by a rich white person. The idea of reparations is that money should be given from the government, so really, from the taxpayers, to black people as compensation for crimes committed against their ancestors. Consider for a moment how truly perfect it is to promote this concept as a rich white person who is interested in getting ahead in the love me queue. First of all, being in favor of reparations is a position that's further left than the average left-winger is. Therefore that puts you ahead of other left-wingers in the love me queue. Second, you can call everyone who disagrees with you a racist. Therefore that puts you ahead of all right-wingers in the love me queue. Third, you can call other white left-wingers who are hesitant about reparations, as not being as committed to racial justice as yourself. Therefore that puts you ahead of most white people in the love me queue. Fourth, by asking that black people be helped, you're effectively placing yourself above black people. After all, poor people don't ask that rich people are helped, and low-status people don't ask that high-status people are helped. So by asking that black people are helped, you're placing yourself above black people. So now you're ahead of black people in the love me queue too. And fifth, all of this doesn't actually cost you any money, you're asking that the government, so really, the taxpayer, pays money to black people. You're not paying money to black people yourself. So you're maintaining your own wealth and thereby position in the love me queue. So, calling for reparations is a truly wonderful idea, if you're a left-winger who wishes to improve their position in the love me queue. The same argument goes for pretty much all radical left-wing ideas, and for pretty much all the right, Trump, Musk is bad type of messages. People who feel they can't get their needs met directly, such as their need of being loved, often will try to get it met indirectly or in a manipulative or roundabout way. Note that your rational mind is mostly a rationalization machine that ties a pretty bow on the decisions that you make emotionally or subconsciously. Most decisions aren't made by your rational mind. And don't be too quick to think that this only applies to others but not you. If you can't see how robotically or emotionally or irrationally or subconsciously you sometimes behave or used to behave, then probably you're still sometimes being robotic or emotional or irrational or subconscious even today. Which is fine, most people are like that, but then it is valuable to keep doing your spiritual and self-healing work. If you think I'm being too cynical, well, I'm just sharing my perspective. I think I'm just seeing clearly the plain truth of what happens on a world where people aren't loved enough and don't love themselves enough. After all, it's obvious that people who haven't eaten for 20 days will do just about anything to eat, right? Well, people who haven't been loved for 20 years will do just about anything for love. So, how to fix Earth society? Give yourself and others more love. Your star brother, Hakann.